GT Holidays, South India's #1 travel brand.
Experience the next level of imaging with Vivo X100 series. Pre-book now.
Hello, Ananya. Welcome to Galata Plus.
Hello, sir.
Congratulations on Kho Gaye Hum Kahan.
Thank
and,
you.
But I'm going to first go back to your first film,
Yes.
which is Student of the Year 2. I watched it, and it didn't work for me. I gave it a kind of a negative review, and this is the comment that I got. So I'm going to read it out for you. Mr. Rangan, you can make snide remarks against millennials, but the truth is that we millennials are ruling the world. There's nothing you or your jealous ilk can do anything to us. We will continue to rock. You are jealous because you became an old, outdated man way back in your teens, just like Anupam Kher and Alok Nath. So,
What is the hateful bashing?
but tell me one thing, Ananya, are millennials and Gen Zs like you truly ruling the world? Are we out of date?
I don't think so. Actually, that's a very nasty comment. I
No,
don't.
but but sometimes you do feel that you don't get things because your generation's apart or whatever. So.
I don't think that's true. Actually, I don't think that's true because, especially with Kho Gaye Hum Kahan, for that matter, we felt like a lot of older people would not relate to the movie because it was something about our generation and
Right.
how we are interacting and our relationships at this time. But it was surprising how my grandmother, my friends' grandmothers, I'm not even saying parents, I'm saying grandmothers and grandfathers, they all related to the film. They all felt, they all felt the pulse of what the film was trying
Right.
to say. And all their feedback was so current that I really don't understand this outdated, feedback, because I feel like nothing trumps experience. And the fact that they've lived so many years, they've seen how things change and are almost cyclic. Like, when my dad talks sometimes and he talks about how cinemas change, he's seen so many phases of how, the cinema has been with
Right.
coming of VHS, then, back to the theaters, now with the OTT boom. He's seen so much of it that they have a more broad-minded approach sometimes. I think sometimes Gen Z and millennials, I'm not saying anything against us, but I think we have a little, because we can only see what's happening around us. We've not lived that many years. We feel like whatever it is, it's going to be that only for the rest of time. But I feel like people who've, lived longer, they have a broader approach to things. So I'm a boomer supporter.
Thank you. But tell me, Ananya, from a Gen Z point of view, what is cinema to you guys? In the sense that, for people like us who grew up in theaters, right, that was the big experience, then VCRs and all that. It was like the sole mode of entertainment that was a little larger than life. I'm not talking about books and other things, but generally, right? But today, cinema is just one of the many, many, many things that you can do to consume some time. You can be on Instagram. You can watch shorts and reels or do whatever it is. You don't necessarily have to go to a movie. So does cinema, is it that same great classical art for you guys as it was for us?
I don't know if I can speak for everyone, because I feel like,
Right.
because I'm an actor and I've grown up on, big, the big cinematic experience, and it's something that I crave and
Sure.
I love. So I was the kind of person, when I was in school, every Friday, whatever film was releasing, I would go with my friends and watch it, and nothing could take away from that experience. Like
Right.
getting my popcorn, sitting with my friends, discussing the film after. That was something that I loved. And during COVID, when that wasn't happening, it was something that I missed and I craved, and I wanted to go back to it, even though we were exposed to so much cinema, OTT, and there was so much to watch that I probably wouldn't have been able to in the cinemas, just because there was no way of watching it.
Right.
So personally, for me, nothing can replace the cinematic experience. I think even as an actor, there's a different kind of joy you get when you watch your films and you watch the reactions of people on
Right.
screen. And just the way I think this year and last year has been, you can see that desire for people to come back into cinemas. I don't think that's fully gone away. And a lot of young people especially.
What about your friends, for instance?
I think everyone loves going to the cinema. It's like you make a plan and it's a whole thing. But I think the cinema audience might be less forgiving, though, because you've given so much time to something. That's why I think maybe the difference with Gen Z is that now, I think because you have so many options, if someone has chosen to go to the cinema, then they want like the value for their money, you know?
Right.
So I think that forgiving, like before when my dad or my grandparents, or even before COVID, I used to go to the cinema, I would watch something, and even if it was nice and mediocre, I'd still be like, okay, chalo, time pass ho gaya, and
Right,
it was a
right.
good fun experience. Okay, the film didn't work, but it was fun. But now I think people have so many different outlets, as you said, and things have become so much tougher financially also. I think if you are investing and going to watch a film, then you need to really love it, and that's why people have become more unforgiving, I think. Cinematic audience at least.
Now, Kho Gaye Hum Kahan is about the social media generation, and one of the things about what social media has done is, like, let's take in earlier generations, right? The launch of a star kid was a given. It was not about whether this person would be launched. It would be when. When is Dharmendra going to launch his son, Sunny Deol? When is? It was kind of given that, that if they have a son or a daughter, they would automatically get into films. That has now changed a lot into, oh my God, not another star kid. And that's become the whole narrative now. And I think social media has had a lot to play in this narrative. What is your take on this whole thing? How do you handle it?
I think when I started out, or when I was, it's now been 5 years, which feels like almost a lifetime ago, because nowadays things are changing so fast. People's reactions are also changing almost every Friday. It's like when something new comes, people suddenly have a different opinion, and the next thing will come, and suddenly everyone's changed completely. So when I started out, it was slightly different. Growing up, it's as you said, because my dad was an actor, a lot of people would ask him, oh, when is Ananya going to become an actress? Even now, when I see my younger sister, they're like, oh, she'll to become an actress, and she doesn't want to become an actress. So for me, it was always less about what everyone else was saying, but about the fact that I wanted to be an actor since a very young age, since I was born practically. I don't remember a time when I didn't want to be an actor. And I don't think it was because my dad was an actor, because he wasn't the kind of father who would take us on sets, or we didn't have too much exposure to the films that he was doing. I must have been on his film sets, like I can count on my hand, maybe like thrice growing up. So it wasn't something that was influenced by the fact that he was an actor. It was just, I love performing. And it was more to do with the fact that he had this video camera growing up, which could flip and you could see yourself in that camera. So I would just love performing. I knew every Bollywood song. I knew all the dialogues of every film. And my dad could just sit for like 2-3 hours and just record me. And I would be so happy seeing myself on that little video screen. So I think it came from that for me.
Right.
And it was also something my parents didn't take seriously when I said I wanted to be an actor. They were always very kind of particular about my education and going to college and, finishing that and having a backup, because my dad has had a successful run, but it's been filled with ups and downs. It's not been the smoothest of journeys. So I think more than anything, he understood how easy it is to fail. There's more the higher failure rate than a success rate. So he always wanted me to have a backup, and his parents were doctors. So it's not kind of a generational thing that's been happening in our family. And it was just something that when I was maybe 16 or 17, I wouldn't say fought with my parents, but I really had to prove to them that no, I'm actually serious about this and I want to pursue it. And they were like, okay, cool, but that's on you and we can't help you much beyond a point. And you have to go to college, get a college degree. And before that, I had the opportunity to meet Karan. I auditioned for student and, the film worked out for me. But they still at that point were like, listen, we think you should go to college. You want to do the film. So if things don't work out later, don't blame us. Don't say we made you do this, because we want you to go to college. But it was solely my decision. And I think, obviously, as someone from the film industry, you have that opportunity to meet someone or enter those offices or have that face-to-face with someone, which people take years to do. So that first step into the industry is, of course, easier. There's no argument in that. Right. But I truly believe that after your first film, it's the audience that's going to decide if they like you or not. And at the end of the day, it's a business. So if someone's not profitable, I don't think Beyond a Point producers will put their money. And that's been an example over years. There have been a lot of people from film families who've not been as successful.
Right. Yeah. No, but how do you take it? Because, like, for example, when Gehraiyan was released and your performance was appreciated, but then there was also a lot of people saying that oh, she's just playing herself. She's this character is this rich, entitled princess kind of person, and that's what Ananya is, and she's basically playing herself. There was no, like, there was one section going that way. So what do how do you handle that kind of feedback of criticism or whatever it is? Yeah.
So I think for Gehraiyan and Kho Gaye, funnily enough, even though people think it's the closest to my personality, in a way it is, as much as it is for every young girl. It's not something that's identically who I am. The life experiences they've had are not similar to mine. they're actually, like when I used to, before Khoga, I used to be like, Ahana is me, Ahana is me, and I used to feel very personally attached to the character. And then when the film came out, every girl was like, Ahana is me, Ahana is me, Ahana is me. So I think it's a, it's like a fraction of your personality that's similar to the character, and it's actually the two films that I've prepped the most for. So a lot of hard work goes behind that effortless or that playing yourself thing, because you're not, and sometimes you have to be extra aware that you don't become yourself when you're playing characters similar to how you are, because it's so easy for me, because I'm almost recreating certain situations that have happened in my life. So my go-to would be, how would Ananya react? But I can't react as Ananya because I'm not playing Ananya. So I think both sides of the spectrum have their, playing something completely different from who you are sometimes is easier in a way, because you're behind the garb of costume, dialect, hair, makeup. So that already, does a lot of the performance job in it. But when you're doing something slightly more easy or effortless in that way, that it can be a little harder, because there are tendencies where you switch back to yourself. So both things have I used to take that criticism very harshly, but I know that a lot of work does go behind that, and at the end of the day, that the feedback and the good I've gotten from that has been very rewarding.
Right.
Yeah.
Now let's talk about those two films. When we're talking about the directors, Shakun Batra and Arjun Varen Singh, when you said you prepped extensively for it, what was it that you got as an actor from those two films? As in, like, I would have approached this role this way, but because of all this, or because of Shakun and because of Arjun, I was able to push myself this extra. What can you tell me something about that changed the way you face the camera?
So when I started out, when I did Student of the Year in my first couple of films, I think I was just enjoying the fact that I was an actor. I don't think I took my craft as seriously. I was very serious about the work that I was doing, and I was as sincere and as hardworking, but I didn't understand the intricate side of being an actor, the details that go behind creating a character and a role. So I was just having fun. Anything my directors would do, I would say, I would do it and I'd try it their way. But Shakun really, ingrained it in my head that you have to have a voice as an actor. You have to bring something to the table, and you have to contribute to the character in some way. So I think developing backstories, workshopping, doing physical workshops, as well as a lot of exercises to hone your craft, as they say, riyaz of an actor, things that go into everyday practice of being an actor, because it's not just when you're in front of the camera. There's so much more that you have to do when you're not working. So I think just developing a process. And for me, what's been very helpful was doing backstories as a character, because there's a certain amount that's written in the script, but when you're not on camera, when you're not, the scenes, beyond the scenes that are just written, there's so much else that's happening. So what happens in between those scenes, what your character was like growing up, because you only see a certain part of their life, but they've had a whole life before. So I think developing small things like their eating habits, if they have a bad habit like biting their nails, or like, tucking their hair behind their ear, anything like that, anything small, picking something up that makes that character human. I think some like things like this really helped me with Khoga and Gehraiyan especially.
Can you talk about some of these backstories you developed for Ahana and Khoge?
So Ahana, Neel and Imad had the most detailed backstories, and that really helped. It was about
And
how...
these are backstories that you develop, or Arjun, like, and you talk about, and
Yeah.
she probably would have done this, she probably would have done that. Is that what you do?
So it depends. Arjun actually had the backstories already developed, and then you discuss it with him. Like, okay, would she be exactly like this, or maybe this happened in her life to make her who she is? And sometimes you don't get that. But I think as an actor, it's something that I do now with every film. It's something, even if it's not given. For example, with Dream Girl also, I wrote down, she's a lawyer in the film, and a lot of people didn't even know she was a lawyer. But there was a whole extensive thing written about the fact that her father was a lawyer and she's this kind of lawyer. So it's something that I do as an actor now as a part of my process. With Ahana, it was about how she grew up in Delhi. There was this whole backstory about how she takes the pressure of marriage because she had an older sister who was married, and she always looked up to her sister and wanted to be exactly like her. There was this story about how when Neel, Imad and Ahana met at boarding school, Neel used to get bullied, and Ahana and Imad were the first people who stood up for him and fought for him. So small things like that, which you wouldn't ever be able to see on screen, but as characters, we knew it. So when we were playing those scenes out at the back of our heads. We knew that this has happened with the characters.
right.
So it showed in the relationships.
Right. So when you're doing a film with so many internal moments like Khogai, that is one way to tell the audience what happens is through dialogue. Like which is like I'm feeling this, I'm feeling that, like I'm angry and this and whatever. But in Khogai, there's an equal amount of scenes where, like for instance, that one where you take uh, that selfie and you want to kind of convey a certain thing. The whole thing is happening in your mind, but you have to convey it to the audience. How do you go through those kind of moments? Is like how much of a director actor thing is there? Because I really think that's a very nice. I mean, all three actors, like they really gelled very well. And I was just talking about this before this interview with your manager. It's like there was very good chemistry between the three of you, and you particularly. It was like I really felt your loneliness in that film. Do you feel that loneliness in this social media environment?
Honestly, those were the scenes that came most naturally to me because it's something that I've dealt with personally. When you cut away from all of the noise and you're just alone in your room and you're scrolling and just those feelings that are going on in your head, I didn't have to do much because it was something that I've dealt with so much in my
So
life.
you didn't have to be Ahana at all.
It was a little bit of, but I think that's where Ananya lent herself to Ahana, because even that one scene where Ahana puts her phone away and she's trying to do some work and then she keeps looking at her phone like I've hidden my phone behind this cushion before the interview. So these are things that I could relate to completely, which I think a lot of people in our generation could. So I think in terms of internal dialogue, I wasn't Ananya in the moment, I was Ahana, but it was very similar to what Ananya has faced or I've dealt with in my life, because I have that, I'm a social person to a point, but I also need time to be alone. And in those moments when I'm alone, I'm an overthinker beyond imagination. I overthink everything. So I think just that, and with Khoga Hum Kahan, what really helped us was the phones that we had actually had, it wasn't something with just a green screen on it. Everything the character was actually seeing, which makes a huge difference. Like people might think it's a very small detail, but it makes a huge difference to actually see what the character would be feeling bad about.
Right.
So we had people in other rooms, commenting live on a picture or liking something at that time, which actually, in a weird way, gave me that small, that ting of a like makes your heart kind of go like, oh, who's
Right,
liked the
right,
picture.
right.
So small things like that, I think actually playing those out made a huge difference. And what benefited our relationship, I think, in the film, the three of us, were the workshops more than anything. And I'm really happy Arjun did that, because we workshop with a couple of people. We workshop with Pooja and Sheena and Atul Mongia sir. And they were different kinds of workshops. With Sheena and Pooja, it was more physical, like how would your character walk? And normally you just think, oh, she's a normal Gen Z girl, she'll walk like me. But it's very different, someone who goes to office all day and who has an MBA background will actually have a very different walk and way of sitting when she's in the office versus when she's sitting at home or when she's on the terrace with her friends. So figuring small stuff like that, which I never thought about when I started out,
Right.
I never gave importance to those small details, which makes a huge difference. People talk about how when Ahana comes home, she just slumps on the bed and she gets on her phone, and they're like, that's exactly how we were. And these are things you have to kind of pay attention to, because they actually pay off in the long run. And with Atul sir, we had a lot of moments of silence. We did like almost 20 to 30 minutes of breathing every day before we started our workshops. And that actually got us really comfortable being quiet around one another, because that's something, usually when it's quiet, people want to fill it up with some conversation. But that eased us out in a way that I don't think we also realized, because we had to really step out of our comfort zone and just relax, which is the hardest thing to do sometimes. And maybe that helped in a way. Yeah.
Nice. So now you kind of, after Shakun, working with Vikramaditya Motwani, or rather you have worked with it, you finished the film.
Yes.
It's called Control.
Tentatively.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
all right. So what can you tell us about it, and what did Vikram bring to Ananya?
So it's a cyber thriller, and it's a film that we completed, we finished from start to finish in 15 days. The film was done. And it's a film that I'm in every frame of. So with Vikram sir, it was firstly a dream to work with him, because I've watched Udaan countless times. It's my mom's favorite movie. And I think I was in shock when he wanted to meet me. To begin with, I don't think I believed my team when they were like, Vikram sir wants to meet you. I was like, for what? He wants to work with me? And even when I met him, I was like, so you're directing the movie? He's like, yes, I'm directing the movie. I was like, are you sure you're directing the movie? He's like, yes, I am. So I think it took me some time to actually register that I was working with Vikram sir. And he's a really...
But why would you doubt that?
I don't know. I think I'm still processing the fact that that self-belief, I think, is slightly low in me. I'm a very validation-seeking sort of person. So even when I'm on set, I need my directors to confirm like 10 times that the shot was okay. And I'm like, should I just do one more? Maybe I'll try it like this. So I'm just that kind of person. Even when someone praises my work or compliments me, my first reaction was, really, are you sure? Me? So I have that little bit which I'm trying to get better at. And I don't know where that comes from. I think it's just always been in my personality. So it was
You
a little
did say
bit...
you were an overthinker. So.
I'm an overthinker, I'm a self-doubter and a validation seeker. But yeah, with Vikram sir, it was that film went by so fast and there was so much happening, there was so much chaos because I don't know if I can say it, but it's a screen live film.
Yeah, he's told
he's
that.
spoken about
Yeah,
it. So it's a screen live film, so everything is shot on an iPhone or a laptop screen or a CCTV camera. So there was a lot of technicality also that I had to kind of figure out in the film, because a lot of it I'm holding the camera up myself in a lot of the film. And in the first 2 days of shoot, we finished 30 pages. In one night, I remember we did 16 pages, which I think every actor will be like, and in a proper 12-hour shoot, no overtime, nothing. So there was a lot happening, and I think it taught me to be prepared as an actor and to be, just prepared, because it was like I was supposed to do 8 pages, but we were going in such a flow that Vikram sir was like, okay, let's do the next few pages also. And just to be prepared and on your feet in that moment, and let go of inhibitions, because you can't at that point. You can't be scared that, no, sir, can we do it another day? I think you just have to just give it everything. That's something that I learned from him. And he's the sort of director, which is my worst fear, because he says nothing after a take. He'll just be like, okay, moving on. And I'll be like, was it fine? And he'd be like, yeah, fine. And he would just go in the corner and sit with like his hands in his head in his hands. And I would be like, oh my God, I've messed up and I've done the worst job. But then on the last day of shoot, he was like, no, I'm a fan. So I was like, okay, that's some sort of validation that I needed. But it was one of those experiences that I think in the moment I didn't realize what I was learning, but in life going forward, I'd be like, I probably got that from control. Just preparedness as an actor.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, there was a recent news item that you spoke to Suhana Khan about Archie's and helped her about how to handle criticism, because she got a lot of it for being an Archie, I think just being born or whatever it is. So,
Why were you born?
yeah, like, why were you born to Shah Rukh Khan? Is this like, but what are some of these things that you told, or if someone came to you and said, how do I handle criticism, what would you say?
Firstly, I'm really not the best person to give advice, but I think in a capacity of just being best friends, you tend to talk about everything, and that's one part of, the things that we've discussed. I think I heard Neetu Singh say this, Neetu ma'am say this on Coffee with Karan, don't take failure to your heart and don't take success to your head. And I think that's very important, because as I said before, things are constantly changing. You have to filter out the noise. That's something that's been important for me, because I used to get very bogged down by the mindless trolling, the ones that had no real value to it. Like they told you as you read out, they're not actually saying anything just because of who you are or something about you that they don't like. They're hateful. And I think separating that from actual constructive criticism on things that you can work on has been very important. Like if someone, which they did very early on in my career, say you need to work on your voice. And that's something I actually then went back to the drawing board, and I'm like, okay, how can I pitch myself differently? How can I use my voice differently? Or you need to work on your dance. Then I'm like, okay, I need to work on my dance. And I did do that. And I've tried to progress as much as possible. So I think filtering out what's actually important and what's not. Because in the time of social media, there's a lot of the not important stuff and the mindless, faceless trolling going on. Right. So I would probably say that.
But how would you work on your voice? Did you do voice exercises? I mean, like, what was that criticism, and how did you approach it?
I mean, the criticism was you just have an annoying voice, which I think is the mindless part of it. But then my dad actually sat me down after, I don't exactly remember what film it was, maybe Pati Patni or wo, and he was like, you need to use your voice differently in different emotions. You can't talk in a certain tone when you're angry, when you're sad, when you're happy. Your tone has to differ. You can't pitch your fight scenes just high pitched and go into that squeaky zone. You know, you have to learn how to play with your voice. And then I worked with a vocal
Right,
coach.
right.
I
That
worked
makes
with
sense.
Vikas, so Strictly Speaking is their academy. And they've given me certain exercises that I do every shoot, every morning. It's 30 minutes, so while I'm doing my hair and makeup, and it really has helped. It's actually, a lot of people have come and said, you've done something to your voice, and I think it's changed my voice. Just that riyaz, that practice, like musicians do, you know, you
Yeah.
have to do breathe a certain way, and your voice comes out differently.
Right.
Or even open your muscles, and your voice will change immediately. So
Nice,
yeah, I think just being mindful of those things.
When you entered the film industry, what is the best advice that anyone gave you? Anyone?
There was just so much advice at that time. I'm trying to think. Um, Something that's probably stuck with me, my dad always says success is harder to handle than failure. Because with failure, you can only go up. You know, there's so much that you can practically learn with failure. Oh, I went wrong here, I went wrong there. Acha, okay, next time I'll do this. But when you're successful and you're doing well, there's so much that can go wrong because you can go down. Your personality changes. You have so many yes men around you. You kind of become delusional. It doesn't happen with everyone, but it can
Right.
happen with people. So I think handling success gracefully, staying good as a human being, and yeah, not changing much.
Right. But tell me one thing. Again, a Gen Z kind of question, but how do film stars that have come up in recent times measure success? Because in the olden days, it used to be, like let's take Sridevi, Hema Malini, Rekha, whoever, Madhuri Dixit. It used to be about, how many days your film ran in theaters and silver jubilees, whatever it is. Those were, but now the window for a film in theaters is very limited. Then it goes, a lot of people say, they don't have time to watch all the movies, so they say, I'm going to watch it on OTT or whatever it is. They may watch half the film, they may not watch the rest of the film. How do you define success? Like, at this point, how do you know that whether you're successful or not?
I mean, strangely, I think getting more work would
Okay.
define success for me because if people like your work and they choose to back their film, you be a part of their film, them believing in you is how I would measure success. That's something that I look forward to post a release. The response that I've gotten within the fraternity, especially from directors, because that's where your next job is coming from.
Right.
But it is tough now because you can get lost in the number of followers you have or how many views your reels have as opposed to your films. People are thinking more about that than actually films. So it is hard to tell, especially also now in a time where you can't really tell if things are genuine or no. Even with reviews and stuff, you can't. Every film seems to be
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
saying
yeah, yeah.
really controversial things, but sometimes you actually can't tell because there's so much chatter on social media constantly. Everyone's become a reviewer. It's not just the critics, who it's the actual job. It's like everyone has an opinion. Everyone has a way to make their opinion, get to those actors. And it's tough because a film can work in the theaters and then not work on OTT or not work on, in cinemas, but then work on OTT. So it is a little tough. But personally, I would measure it by the kind of work I'm getting in the future.
Right. Is having 25 million followers on Instagram a kind of success these days for an actor?
I used to think that it is, but then I realized that it's a very small part of the gigantic populous country that we live in, and it's not the real world. It's a small part of it, and you may think that because you have a lot of followers, that directly correlates with mass popularity, but I don't think it does.
Doesn't? Okay.
I don't think so.
Is Dream Girl 2, making over 100 crores or whatever, is that success?
It is. It's monetary success,
Yes.
and I can't lie that 100 crore club or hitting that is not validating
Right.
because at the end of the day, it is a business, and you need your films to do well, and that also goes to show the number of seats that were occupied in the theater, the number of people that have watched your film, and at the end of the day, we make movies so that people watch it and enjoy it and like it. So that is also a measure of success, and also critical acclaim is a measure of success, and also getting your next job is a measure of success. And for me, people just liking my work is also a measure of success.
Is having an Insta game important? Because everybody's talking about it these days. It's like, the one thing that everyone's on about is how, gracefully Zeenat Aman has, entered Instagram and taught everybody how to play the Insta game.
Yeah.
Though I don't think she thought of it as a
Yeah,
game.
which
You
is,
know,
I think, the key to it.
yeah. But is that important these days?
I think so. In a way, it is important, but I think it's also important not to take it too seriously. I think maybe that's what people are doing wrong. Maybe what Zeena G did was just be real on it and be honest, and that was what blew people away, because no one's being honest on social media. I'm not being honest on social media. Something I've tried to do, but unfortunately, no one wants to see the sad side or the failures. You know, when someone's too real, people are like, oh God, now don't talk about this. We want to know what's happening in your life. We don't want to hear, the boring, mundane things that are happening in your life. Everyone just wants that constant excitement, and everyone only posts their successes on social media. So I think it is something that, because it's a beast that everyone kind of has to tame. It's the sign of our times. It's kind of sadly an inroad into society. You feel a lot more connected. With actors, your brands, deals depend on Instagram. So it is something that you have to see as what it is. That's something that I've learned
That's
with
probably
it.
another measure of success, the brands and deals and other things.
Yes, of course. But I think what's important is to remember that at the end of the day, you're a movie actor, you're an actor for screen, and that's what I think people get lost, and they don't focus on what the actual job is. And that's something that I've tried to be mindful about as well.
Right.
Yeah.
So recently, I just when I was Googling Ananya Panday for this interview, and I came across this headline.
Scary.
The headline was, "Guess how much Ananya's dress cost?" Right? And so, what does Ananya Panday wear when she goes out for a meal? A stunning mini from the house of, I don't know how you pronounce it, EDA. That's whatever.
I wouldn't.
And which reportedly cost rupees 10,000 something, whatever. And there's a picture of you. And now, how do you look at things like this which have nothing to do with your acting? Does that feed into a certain because this has nothing to do with your acting, it has just to do with your celebrity and basically the pop culture, right? So do you feel that that can sometimes hinder people's perception of the real work that you're trying to do?
Yeah, it does happen, because I think people see you a certain way, and it also hinders people in the fraternity's perception of you, because, sometimes a director will see you walk out dressed a certain way, and then they can't imagine you as, someone from a smaller town maybe, because they've only seen you in an urban way. So that is kind of tricky, because as an actor, you should be able to play everything. You have to be a blank canvas, and you need to in a way, you need people to see you in different ways, in different roles. So I think now the place that I'm at, I'm not going to lie, when I started out, this social media, I know speaking to a very evolved version of me today, but when I did start out, this pop culture and social media, it used to excite me so much. I think I was focusing so much on the way I dressed, the way I looked. But over time, I've realized that nothing speaks more than your work. It doesn't matter how many times you get papped or where you get papped or what you post. At the end of the day, people are going to appreciate a good performance, and that's it. So I think I understand that as an actor and as a celebrity, that will be part and parcel of the job, because people are curious about your life, what you're wearing, what you're eating, who you're seeing. They want to know all of that. And I think it's an actor's responsibility to keep as much private, keep as much mystery as they can as possible, but also understand that this is part and parcel of the job, and that give and take and that little line is where I'm at right now.
Right.
Yeah, I'm in the middle. Because my dad actually also always says out of sight, out of mind, and he talks about how important it is to be seen, because people forget really easily. They forget, and you kind of lose your relevance sometimes. So he always says, be seen as much as possible. But I'm of the other belief. I'm like, no, but I just want people to see me on the big screen. So there's that little give and take.
Right.
Yeah.
You're acting with Akshay Kumar in the Shankaran Nair biopic. You finished the.
Am I allowed? I can talk about it? Yeah, I guess.
No, everybody knows you're going to.
Maybe
you're in it.
let's
But no,
just say
it's
it.
not about the movie itself. But when you're working with somebody who's been around for so long and at the top for so long, what are some of the things that you look at somebody like Akshay Kumar and say, wow, that's where I should be when I'm that many years into the business?
With Akshay sir, it really surprises me. His enthusiasm till date, because it could feel like after so many years or doing after so many films, you kind of get jaded and you don't, give the same
I think it's been
amount.
around for some 30 years, if I'm not
30 years, and
mistaken.
he's done so many films.
yeah.
Like even now, he's doing so many films. So there's always that thing that it's almost like on autopilot, but it's not the case when I've observed him, because he has that same enthusiasm. His mind is always working on how to make the scene work. What can I do to help my co-actors as well? He remembers everything. Like, उस scene में वो हुआ था तो हम ये करें, and the way his mind works, like he's throwing an idea a minute, like let's try this way, let's try that way, and he has a very, very commercial mind. Like he knows when the audience is going to react to what. So it's actually just like you're observing a magician at work. There's so many tricks up his sleeve, which is quite exciting to see. Like after so many years, to still have that vigor and that passion.
Nice.
Yeah.
Like any actor, you can't, you have a certain face, you can't change your face, you have a certain voice, you have a certain way of doing things. What would be a completely diametrically opposite of Ananya role that, if I were to ask you what kind of role that would be, what would that be?
I think generally doing something from a smaller town, people don't see me as that, and it's a perception I'm trying very hard to break. When I go and meet directors, they're like, yeah, we have this film, but for you to, fit into that world, we don't know, we don't see you as that. So I think because I have this urban perception and this thing that's been created even by the movies that I've done, it's something that I'm finding quite hard to break away from. So I think just seeing me as a small town girl, yeah.
Right,
That's
right.
something that's been quite tough.
But that's the thing. Like, I think it was recently, a little earlier, you said that the two people that you look up to the most are Alia Bhatt and Kareena Kapoor. Alia somehow made that transition that she could play a Gangubai.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
quite amazing,
yeah.
because till I saw the movie, I kind of really Alia, but then you see the movie and you're blown
Yeah,
away,
yeah.
right? It's like you don't see the person, but then the person does it.
Yeah.
And it's like
I think it's about just one director believing in you and seeing you as that. Unfortunately, that's the way it functions. Only when they see you do that will other people come to you with that. After Kho Gaye, now people are like, oh, okay, Ananya can, carry a film on her shoulders, or we can do a film where Ananya is a central part. But before
or even
that,
probably, sorry to interrupt, but even probably Ananya can do middle class convincing.
yeah, exactly. Then after Dream Girl, they're like, oh, okay, you could play a girl from Mathura. So it's only, one, I guess, director just has to have that conviction or that, vision that you could play that, and then other people will follow suit.
So what is it about Kareena and Alia that you admire so much about?
Just their guts, and I think they're unabashed, like they're just themselves. I think it's on screen, they've been very balanced also. I think in the films that they've done, they've had a very good balance between commercial cinema and then critical acclaimed cinema. They've been very good at that, and they've surprised people constantly. Whenever people have written them off or tried to put them down, they always come out shining, and they've been so themselves. They've kind of given me the confidence to be myself as well.
Finally, this year when you kind of gave a late New Year message on Twitter or X. I keep forgetting to say X. It's like it's always
Yeah,
Twitter.
yeah.
Yeah.
I still haven't got news.
Yeah. So you said this is, let us try to change this year. That's what the essence of your message was. How is change happening in your life right now?
I actually said the opposite. I said every year we try to change ourselves. This year I hope you're the most yourself.
Oh, is that it?
Yeah.
Okay, let me read it out. Actually, I was trying to remember it. It was time for a reboot and a couple of resolutions. Every year we try to change ourselves.
Yes.
Yeah.
And this year you should be completely yourself, is what I feel. Because we always make these resolutions and we're always like, this year I'm going to do this and I'm going to get rid of that and I'm going to change like this. But actually what I realized, I think last year was the year of change for me. And this year is, I think, just being at peace with who I am. Because
What is the change?
in terms of my personality.
Okay.
In terms of just how I was as a person, my FOMO that I had, my giving nature, my overthinking, all of that. I wanted to just be everywhere. I wasn't prioritizing what was actually important to me. I was carried away with a lot of other things. And I think it's tough to make those changes in your personality. It's actually very tough. So I think last year was a lot of just trial and error and a lot of personal growth. And I think this year it's about just being at peace with who I am, finally.
So being yourself.
Being myself.
So to more peace and to more films like Kho Gaye Hum Kahan.
Thank you.
Ideally, yes, every film should be seen on a big screen, but somehow the coziness of the film, if I might call it that, it really lent itself to like an OTT kind of watching it on a smaller screen. It's such an intimate film.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was really nice to see the three of you just be that way.
Yeah.
It was a very interesting, and I think probably the first real honest look at this social media generation. And I hope you get more scripts like that. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I was really nervous, so I hope I made sense. But thank you so much.
GT Holidays, South India's #1 travel brand.
Experience the next level of imaging with Vivo X100 series. Pre-book now.